boys and girls. Today we're gonna do Bible lesson 3, and it's gonna talk about the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus brought his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane, where silence filled the garden except for the sighing of the wind and the olive trees. The disciples were tired and weary because the hour was now very late. Jesus told them to sit down and wait while he went on ahead to pray. He took Peter, James, and John and walked some yards away from the others. Then Jesus began to be very sad and sorrowful, and his soul was greatly troubled. The time of his suffering and death for the sins of the whole world had come. He said, "My soul is crushed with sorrow. Stay here and stay awake with me." Jesus wanted the comfort of having the 3 disciples near him, watching and praying while he prayed. Jesus went forward a little and fell on the ground. His suffering was so great that it seemed impossible to bear. Though he was God, he was enduring the human suffering as he became our sin substitute. In agony he prayed, "Oh, my Father, if it's possible, let this suffering be taken away from me, but I want your will, not mine." He meant, "Father, if there is any way of saving people from their sin without this terrible suffering, without my having to die on the cross, if there is, do it some other way, but I want your will, not mine, to be done." But there was no other way for God to redeem sinful men, and Jesus knew that before the world was created, and that is why he had willingly come from heaven and offered himself as the lamb to be sacrificed to take away the sin of the world. Returning to Peter, James, and John, Jesus found them sound asleep. He called out to them, "My friends, couldn't you even stay awake with me 1 hour? You need to pray so that you won't fall when temptation comes." Right when they should have been praying for comfort, strength, and help, they went to sleep. Again, Jesus left the disciples and prayed the same prayer. And again, he went back and found them sleeping. So he went to pray the 3rd time. He prayed so earnestly, and his heart was so broken that his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling to the ground. But then something wonderful happened. His Father sent an angel from heaven to strengthen him. At last, rising from the ground, Jesus went back once more to where Peter, James, and John were still huddled together in a deep sleep. "Rise up, let's be going," he said. "Here comes the one to betray me." There through the dark garden came a rowdy mob with torches and lanterns, sticks and swords. They had been sent by the Jewish religious leaders. And who was leading this wild, angry mob of ruffians? None other than Judas. Judas had told the religious leaders that he would give them a sign so they would know which one was Jesus. "The one I go up to and kiss is the one that you're after." As the crowd gathered around, Judas stepped up to Jesus, kissed his cheek, embraced him in a friendly way, and said, "Greetings, Master." The Savior knew why Judas kissed him, so he said, "Friend, why are you here? Would you betray the Son of a Man with a kiss?" Jesus then turned to the crowd and asked, "For whom are you looking?" They answered, "For Jesus of Nazareth." "I am he replied. When he said this, the whole crowd drew back and fell to the ground like dead men. They were terrified because they were in the presence of the mighty God. Finally, some of the people staggered to their feet, came up to Jesus, and grabbed him. Peter was so upset that he drew his sword and cut off the right ear of one of the men, Malchus, the servant of the high priest. "Put your sword away, Peter," Jesus commanded. For all they that take the swords shall perish with the sword." Then Jesus reached out and touched the ear of Malchus and healed him. How loving and kind Jesus was to his enemies, even when they were taking him away as a prisoner. The men were not capturing Jesus, but instead, Jesus let them take him, for that was why he came from heaven. So they took Jesus as a prisoner and led him away. The disciples, paralyzed with fear, scattered in all directions. They all forsook him and fled. Later, after it was too late, Judas took the money back to the priests and scribes in the temple and said, I have betrayed the innocent blood. But they would not take his money because they said it was blood money. So Judas threw it down on the temple floor, went out, got a rope, and hanged himself. What a dreadful, tragic end for one who had every chance to be safe. The rulers took the money and bought a plot of ground for poor people to be buried in. As Jesus looks into our hearts today, I wonder if he sees that some of us are hypocrites like Judas. We don't mean what we say. Outwardly, we act one way but don't feel that way inside. It is perfectly possible to go to church and Sunday school, to try to be good and kind, to outwardly pray, to avoid cheating or using ugly words or being unfair, and still not belong to the Lord.